It's just me right now. What's going on? Why am I here? Hello, everyone. Welcome to Survivor Stock Watch, our third season of coverage, the most vicious season ever. I am Jack. I am the host. Will is not here. He will be here in a couple minutes. You know, he's getting everything situated. But I wanted to welcome you all to our third season of Survivor Stock Watch coverage. How's everybody doing? How we feeling? Is it a good day? Is it a good spring break coming up potentially? I'm going on spring break. I am going to Nashville. I am leaving Monday. And I am excited. It is going to be a good time. Get to relax, kick my feet up, watch Survivor in the hotel. Chris, good to see you. Glad you could make it out to the show. I am happy that you are doing good. So Survivor Stock Watch Season 3, most vicious season ever. What exactly do we mean by the most vicious season ever? First of all, vicious in terms of you should get your merchandise for Survivor Stock Watch because I got merchandise. But vicious season. What do we mean? What do we mean by that? Well, you know, Jeff always likes to talk up the season, you know, get it going, get it excited before we launch with the premiere. And he said before this season that this would be the most vicious season of Survivor in a while. Right. Said it would be one of the most vicious seasons in a while. And so, with that moniker in mind, Survivor Stock Watch is going to be the most vicious season ever. You know, how can we be vicious? How can we be vicious? Well, to tell you the truth, we're going to make jokes. And in this slideshow, there is going to be something new. You know, we kind of toyed with this as we approach the end of season 45. We are going to have some jokes attributed to each castaway based on something of the episode. You know, I did some digging earlier this morning trying to find some interesting memes, interesting jokes I could attribute to each of the castaways. And we'll see how it goes. We are going to be vicious, not only with our jokes, but in our reviews. And speaking of vicious, I think somebody's here to see us.
Yo, I'm not late.
Hey. No, you're not.
Now I'm bit. I did not just leave work to come to a Survivor podcast.
You did not. Will.
Jack, it's been a
welcome. Glad you could join me.
Oh, yeah, I'm joining you, pal.
You're joining me. You're joining me in my humble abode with the most vicious season of Survivor Stock Watch ever.
Who came to Outback Steakhouse? Who came to my place of work just to see me?
Listen. I was in the area. I just stopped by, wanted to say hello. You know what I mean?
Yeah. For the fans who don't know, for the people who don't know, who haven't seen the Survivor Now Instagram, me and Jack did meet up.
We did.
It was very weird because we were both.
It was absolutely, positively glorious. We had a good time, didn't we? We had a good time shooting the stuff, hanging out, talking Stock Watch.
We did.
You know, it was a good time.
Jack left me a very obvious Google review, and that got me Employee of the Month. I just want to let you know that publicly.
That's exciting. And honestly, we're going to share that review in its own little bubble as the first slide of next episode. So be prepared for that. But in the meetup, were any of you scarier in person than you thought? I don't know, Will. Was I scarier, more vicious in person?
No, but you were just taller than I thought. I thought I was taller than you. But no, we were two lumbering oafs just in this Outback Steakhouse, bro. And his server is the shortest person that works at Outback. But yeah, no, it was a fun time.
It was. It
It was a cool
absolutely
picture.
was. It was
Yeah.
nice to see you in person. Nice to finally link so we can get
Yeah.
united on our ideas for the most vicious season of Survivor Stockwatch ever. I'm gonna beat it into the ground. We're making it clear and known. This is the most vicious season of Survivor Stockwatch to date.
Absolutely, absolutely. Whatever you say,
Absolutely.
buddy.
How
Whatever
did
you
you
say.
how did you enjoy this first episode?
I was surprised, I want to say, because there's a few people I thought going into the season would be very over the top, because a lot of people say they want to play like Carolyn, or they like Carolyn from 44. And Carolyn's one of my favorite players, especially of the new era. But like when you have 20 Carolyns, it's kind of like the Tony Vlachos effect, right? Where every season, if you have one bald guy from New Jersey, it kind of loses the appeal. But I was surprised with how laid back a lot of the people were. I mean, obviously, you still had your big personalities like Banu just freak out and cry and be over the top. But no, I'm very excited for this cast. I feel like we're in for quite the treat. I want to say. I got my
Maybe the
Sega
most
buff on.
vicious season of Survivor ever.
Okay. Yeah. Jack is the most. Yeah, when I think of people like Ben and Jess, and Banu, I think of vicious.
I think of viciousness. I do as well.
That's what I think of. But
I enjoyed this episode as well. I am very interested to see how it goes. Often I kind of have a conception of how exactly I think the season is going to go, going into the season after the first episode, and as the season plays out, I don't. This is the kind of season where I'm really not the only theme I'm really aware of is vicious, because Jeff said it in a preseason interview. I truly don't know what else is going to happen this season. I don't know the themes. I didn't really do as much pre-hand research for this season as I did for 45 and 44. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But before we see what happens, we have to see, what happened. And David Jelinski happened. I know David.
You know David?
I have not played a game with him before, but I do know of him and I have seen him play games. And the best way I can describe how Mr. David Jelinski played Survivor 46 is, first of all, several, meaning 7 mistakes. But also, he played it like it was a game.
Yeah.
He played it like he was playing, and he was gonna be able to play another game in a month.
Yeah.
He played it. He truly played it like a online reality game.
Yep.
And I cannot hold that against him, for I'm sure most of us would. But respect to him for going out there and actually playing Survivor 46. Now, this is where the viciousness comes in. You ready?
Yeah.
This is a top 5 most ridiculous first boot of all time.
Yeah. I don't know. We gotta let it ride for a bit.
I don't know. Can you get better?
I very rarely have we gotten a first boot where the whole storyline of the premiere was about just dunking on someone, right? We haven't really had that in a good bit. Jelinski just getting railroaded at the tribal council is nothing short of comedic gold. Him constantly wanting to put himself in a position and then giving up is hilarious. Calling himself a legend and a monster for no reason. The title of the episode being named after him. It's just, I don't know. Zane Knight, I don't know if he was the last one because there's also Garrett, but Garrett wasn't a first boot.
Yeah, the second boot.
But he was a premier boot.
Nah. We're talking strictly first boots here.
Then I don't know, man.
I mean, yeah, it was a truly legendary flaming out. Like, he was high on himself. He believed he was going to dominate the season. Instantly volunteered for everything. Quit quickly after he volunteered for said things. Not only in the sweat task and on the journey, but also in the puzzle of the challenge. He just kind of said, "Here you go, Jess. Here's a piece. Here's a piece. Here's a piece." Like, just quit after volunteer. And I think Survivor editing played a hand in this. I think they truly edited so that we would laugh at David Jelinski. We would go, this guy is ridiculous. And I laughed. I laughed quite a bit. I thought it was hilarious, and I thought it was great editing, which, Survivor always does good editing. But in terms of top 5 first boot ever, he's in great company. We have Zane Knight, of course, who can forget. We have Chicken Morris from Survivor China with his famous line. We have Francesca Hoagie, 2 first boots, so that's important. We have Sonia Christopher, first boot ever in Survivor history.
She's in a league of her own because her vote out wasn't funny. It was sad. I want to throw in Wendy Jo.
I think
Wendy Jo is high up there. I keep thinking of second boots like Tony Vlachos and the whole works.
You can dip into a little bit of international Survivor as well. One comes to mind is Andy from Blood versus Water, just completely flopped the bed. Peter Harkey, there you go, exactly. We have a great base of first boots, and I think David Jelinski is absolutely positively the first boot king in the new era. Now, the last thing we have to say is this meme right? You know what I mean? Because I've seen people compare him and Brandon from Survivor 45. Is it correct to assume that they played very similarly and they both flamed out very similarly, or were they different?
No, because I feel like Brandon was terrible in every facet of the game. Mm-hmm. He was horrendous physically. His social chops that he, wanted to say he had weren't really there. I love Brandon. Great social media presence, right? Follow Brandon Donlon on Twitter if you want a good laugh. But, his social connections did not last outside of Hannah Rose, who quit the season. And strategy was not there because he had, he was the first one, voted out, properly voted out. Jelinski, I feel like he had the makings of a decent, Survivor player. Not anyone to write home about. But I think he did get kind of screwed over. The sweat task is very hard. I do get it. And he was kind of put in a really awkward situation where he was making a lot of enemies really early on in the boat ride. And, losing the first challenge. That just happens, right? But he gave up. And he didn't want to, push himself further. And that was... he was always going to be the first boot because of that. Mm-hmm. I do think, though, that the Yanu tribe is similar to Lulu in a sense where I feel like they are the disaster tribe this season. I feel like Nami is not going to tribal council at all. I feel like we're going to see Siga there maybe once or twice, but it's going to be Yanu that we're really going to hear from, at least in the early merge.
Once again, the purple tribe in a 3-tribe season is the one with the focus. Think Tika 3 from 44. We'll see how that plays out, though.
Oh, yeah.
We move on to the Andy Griffith character. If you can beautifully see his face attributed to the 5th season of Andy Griffith in that picture. He had a good episode. Kind of a stoic, quiet, hardworking type. And I think his strategy is quite brilliant, and we've seen it work quite well in the past. The best example of recent is Omar and Jonathan from 42.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
Omer, great strategist, not good physically. Jonathan, horrible strategist, great physically. Put them together, and you got a working machine. Hunter's like, I'm not a social guy. I can be a physical guy, and I'm smart. Tevin, he's a great social guy. Put two and two together. There you go.
Yep. I feel like we're also getting a bit of an Austin here. I feel like Hunter's
Maybe.
not winning the season, but like he's gonna make it far. He's gonna win the challenges. He's gonna be a hard worker. Everyone's gonna like him. He's gonna make it far and then get voted out late in the game. You know, probably the first casualty of his alliance. Like the way we viewed Austin early on in 45 is how I view Hunter now.
Okay.
You know, I know we're kind of getting that Diet JT and Steven storyline with him and Tevin. You know, I think a possible storyline is, you know, being authentic and adapting, which we kind of see Hunter doing, where he, you know, has spoken how he, you know, is an introvert, doesn't quite fit in with the whole camp morale and like wanting to sing camp songs or whatever. And overcoming that could be a important storyline. That's just something I kept note of. And I feel like with the Hunter types, I feel like we're going to hear just enough of them every episode to like understand where his head's at strategically, but nothing where it's like, okay, this guy's the winner. And that's how I view him.
Sure. I think the JT and Steven, you know, ever since that duo came on our screens back in, I don't even know, in like 2009 or something like that, back when they were on our screens, we instantly gravitated towards them. And now that's the benchmark, you know, it's the nerdy guy and the hardworking guy. This is an evolution of that. And I think it's different. I think Hunter's definitely the more JT type of person, but there is no Steven in this. Tevin is not a Steven type of nerd character. He is a social, savvy kind of player that is more kind of fitted for the new era. And so this is different. And this is going to be an interesting evolution of it because you don't really see that particular dynamic of less social, more working, and more social, less working. It's more physical and smart.
Yep.
But the Austin and D example at the same time is also, I'd say it's a little early to call that. I don't think we see the dynamic where Tevin's truly maybe dominating that relationship and is the one in charge, essentially. We haven't seen that yet. If we see that, then we could start calling him Austin and D. But for now, I am iffy to put the nose on that. And so I think we leave Hunter there.
Absolutely.
And then we move on to Liz, who owns multiple businesses. Did you know that? She owns multiple businesses. We saw this in Australian Survivor probably about a week ago. Talking about your multiple businesses is a horrible idea. I don't know why people continue to do it. Do people watch this show?
Have you seen Sherry and Caramoan? Like,
do you watch Survivor? Do you see people admitting, yes, I own multiple businesses? And seeing how that's a bad idea? Liz falls into the new classic trap of saying you own multiple businesses because now that's a trope, apparently. And now that could be a casting archetype, owning multiple businesses.
Business owner.
Yeah, so horrible episode, just terrible. Yeah. And I don't think she's going to do well in this season at all. And I don't think one of the other people who also had a bad rating this episode, who's actually next, is going to have a good season at all either.
Yeah, no, the problem with Liz, I feel like there's no longevity with Liz, I feel like I look at Liz and I kind of see a lot of problems that we had with Sifu last season, where it's like, yeah, we know he's not making it far. You know, he might last a little longer than we thought, but there's no way. Like, I don't see Liz making jury. I think Liz is a pre-juror. I don't know if she's going to be the first boot if Nami goes to tribal. I don't know if Nami will go to tribal or if there's going to be a swap or what. But there's already a lack of awareness with Liz. And as much as she's fine with, not eating food, that wears on you. And it's going to wear on Liz in ways I don't think she's expecting it to. But I just don't see anything with Liz, and I feel like there's not even a case for me to make of like, oh, if she gets the numbers, because we also didn't really get a lot of Liz's strategy this episode.
We didn't
It's
at
just
all.
her being weird and owning businesses.
We'll see how that turns out for her. We've seen people make it far when they own businesses. Sherry and Caramon, Kitty and Titans versus Rebels. We'll see how it plays out.
Who knows?
And speaking of somebody who also had a bad episode, I put a picture of Parvati and her many faces and many appearances because Parvati stays rent-free in all of these people's minds, and people are still obsessed with her to this day. Parvati is truly the reality TV icon of 2024. Congratulations. But yeah, Randon was, kind of like thinking of Venus as a potential Parvati 2.0. And we'll get to Venus and her meme later. But really, again, we're doing the same thing again.
Yeah, that's fair. That is accurate. My problem with Randon is that, we see him thinking strategically, and that's why he's above Liz. That's the only reason why he's above Liz for me. I have Liz 17, I have Randon 16. The fact that we hear from Randon and his point of view and his thinking is good enough. But the fact that he immediately gets contradicted in the episode, the fact that immediately Soda's like Randon's trying to take control of the game, spells huge problems for Randon. This was a terrible episode one for that very reason. And we don't hear much from Randon at all, except for Venus is another Parvati and there's another Black Widow and all Girls Alliance and whatever. And that does not spell any longevity for Randon. Between Nami, honestly, I feel like it's going to be a back and forth between whether or not Randon or Liz go. Probably Randon at first, but who knows, man? Who knows?
We'll see. I mean, it was a rough episode, and based on next episode, we could see Venus take more of a front position in visibility. And so, what will Randon respond with? We will have to find out. And we move to Soda, the camp counselor, with this accurate "Don't make me use my camp counselor voice" meme. But to be fair, her skills as a camp counselor surely come in handy in terms of the survival aspect. But she said she's going to use a little bit of her camp counselor skills in her game, which isn't a bad idea.
No. So, you ready for the first crackpot theory of,
Here we go.
Of the summer?
Here we go.
We are looking at a fire-making person right now.
Really?
She has mentioned, shown in the episode, she can build fire. I made a note of that.
Okay.
Quick thing. I think if her whole shtick is being a camp counselor, what do you do at camp? You build a fire, right? That's a very easy standard life lesson. Very true. So we could see that. Maybe she loses, maybe she wins. Do I think she's the winner? Probably not. I don't know. I'm not too high on Soda right now. But honestly, everyone between the 6 and 12 range aren't that low. They're just in the middle tier. A strong episode 2 can always make me change my mind. I just feel like I don't know. I feel like Soda is going to be more of a narrator, more of a character than strategist. I know we saw her, react to Randon and, have that Soda intuition. What was it? Sodar. That's what it was. But I also just fear. Ooh, Oliver. All right, I see you.
All right, Oliver. That was good.
The cameo. I don't know. I'm not high on Soda right now. I can't explain why. It's a crackpot.
I really like the idea. I mean, I think it's very apparent that they're trying to make the fire players like a little bit more obvious as the seasons go on. I mean, they shoved Carson making fire down our throats in Survivor
Yeah.
44, and Soda definitely could make fire. But I wanted to highlight a point that you made about the contenders because, truthfully, there are no real. I mean, there's usually not any real contenders at the very beginning of the game. There's not any real contenders right now. The problem is there are a lot of people that could be. And honestly, the top 12, top 11, if you're, letting it slide a little bit, any
10.
one of them are in the mix. It's a big mix of people that could win the game. There are few people in the game, like we saw Randon and Liz, we don't think are going to win. But there are 11 to 12 people who we think they could have a shot. And it depends. It really depends. And that is the genius of Survivor editing, where we don't know.
Nope.
We don't know. Speaking of genius of Survivor editing, how about that little TV box moment? That was fun. And that is just another trick in the box.
All right. So I have Tevin number 1. Do I think he's the winner? No, not one bit. Do I think he's going Don't spit your drink out.
You have to, if you're going to rank him number 1, you think he wins. That's how this works.
But of everyone in this cast, I feel the most confident that Tevin's going to be one of the main characters, if not the main character, at least on his tribe. I think he's going to make it very, very far. So Tevin is the first one we're going over. That's my draft pick for the team. He was my last pick overall. At first he was my number 1, and then I got cold feet. After this episode, though, I feel relatively confident with Tevin. I feel like he's going to be too big of a character and too big of a name. When we go down the line, I think he's going to be one of the early on threats that people want to take out. Maybe like Kelly in 45. But I do think out of the whole cast, I think Tevin's going to make it really far. I'm confident he's making merge. I feel like I can lock it in now. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
He could have
I honestly agree with that. I think Tevin is gearing up to be one of the main characters of the season, and not a lot wrong with his edit in this episode. Very clear what he wanted to do, make smart decisions, really good reactions. Like with certain people, you can tell they're going to be important. It's harder on American Survivor than other versions, but on American Survivor, you can sometimes tell when someone's going to be really, really important to the season. And you could tell that Tevin is very, very important. I mean, leave it to the fact that he was the very first confessional setting the stage for Survivor 46 in this episode. So there's no doubt in either of our minds that Tevin is going to be a very important season. Winner? Tough to say. Probably not. But
nope.
You never know.
But I almost feel like maybe he can, because I'm never confident with the guy who's getting a 1-minute monologue in the start of the season, making it to the very, very end. But then I also think of Carolyn from 44. She had a very, very strong opening confessional where we saw Carolyn. And that, I don't know. I feel like because of that, he makes it far. And I am very happy.
That's an interesting comparison. Is Tevin, if let's say Tevin has this intro confessional, could Tevin mirror Carolyn in the sense that he makes it and gets runner-up?
Ooh, /maybe.
Cooking something good. We'll get back to you on that. But for now, we move to Parvati 2. Thank you, R/Survivor, for this one. Right outside of the contender range, I just don't really see it with Venus. I think she's someone that's going to be a feisty player, but honestly, we don't really see a a lot of strength in her. I mean, we both have her at 13, but
Yeah.
I want to know. I want to know what you think, and I believe so, Chris. I don't think there was really any last season, if I'm not mistaken.
No. I think last season, instead of like a strong intro confessional, it was Emily at the Mat Chat.
Yeah,
I think that kind of took its place. We didn't get anything in 41 or 42. I feel like the last like strong opening confessional was like Tony and 40, right? Talking
sure. Yeah.
about like, the Super Bowl. I don't know. But back to Venus. I feel like she's just going to be a strong character in the early pre-merge, going to be a lot of the drama centered around her and Randon on Nami. But I also feel like they're both not winning the war. And I feel like when there's already tension between those two, it just sets the stage for Hunter and Tevin to take over and dominate, leaving Soda just kind of in the middle. And Liz, owning businesses. I feel like she's capable. It's just Brandon already calling her out, and then Tevin calling her, what was it, princess?
Yep.
I feel like Venus got a bad cast, I think. A cast that's not really meant for her. Honestly, I think she would have done better in 45.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a bad timing. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's a bad timing thing as well.
Yeah.
It could very well be that. But it's going to be interesting to see, especially with that next time on Survivor, seeing Venus being a kind of a prominent figure on that. We're going to see if this is really like a new Parvati or a Claire or whatever. We will find out. Now we're going to green to Siga, I believe is the name. There you go, the green buff. Ben plays guitar. Did you know that? He plays guitar. He loves guitar. Did you?
What's your special interest? Guitar.
Yeah, I play guitar, man. Yeah, so Ben has a very vibrant personality. He's obviously someone that I think people are gonna like. The Vibe Tribe kind of instilling that, and that was his mission, and it worked out relatively well, I'd say. A little over the top in that regard, but Ben is a good character. We'll see if he goes far. He has a chance.
Yeah. My only fear with Ben is he needs to link up with a strategic player. He doesn't have that killer instinct yet, and I feel like the players the viciousness. And I think of Cody, right? I feel like when Cody linked up with Jesse, they became a very apparent duo because, Cody was more outgoing and sociable. Jesse was more the, assassin or whatever, right? Ben needs that, and someone needs to enforce that like strategic mindset towards Ben, because just being the vibe guy is great early game, but there's not a lot of longevity, and that's my only fear with Ben. But he has the personality to make it far. He just needs to, have that strategic mind.
He definitely does. See a winner?
Too early to say. Already off the bat, I don't know. Just because I feel like you need the story for the Sia prize. I feel like, we think of like Katora last season had the story. Carolyn 44. I feel like Ben just being a vibe guy makes for a good fan favorite, but not for Sia.
We shall see.
We shall.
We move to the Swiftie. Very popular nowadays. So I think Survivor casting kind of knew what was going on with that. In a good spot in his tribe, in the middle, but I don't see a crazy amount of longevity with him. I don't think he goes that far. I think he gets right around early merge or mid merge, or he could be pre merge. But I don't see a lot of longevity. I think he's in the middle just because of his happenstance.
Yeah, no, I feel like he's in the middle not because he put himself there, but just because the women's alliance formed and he's a Swiftie. I don't know. And I feel like the guys alliance, like the Tim and Ben connection, isn't as strong for me to be like Charlie's definitely in the middle. I just think he's a part of the women's alliance on that tribe. I feel like if Sega goes to tribal, I feel like we're seeing Tim or maybe even Ben going.
I think we're seeing Tim.
Most likely Tim, but like I'm just throwing Ben in there just because it's Survivor, you know.
Definitely.
But I feel like Charlie won't have the longevity once the tribes dissolve and we get to the merge or we get to a swap. I feel like he can be even labeled as an early game threat. You know, I think back to like Caleb last season, right? Where everyone's like, Caleb's a threat. We should do something.
Not in the same dimension. I think Caleb was so readily seen as a threat immediately. Everybody knew. With Charlie, it's a little harder. I think he's a little more introverted, and I think that will help him.
True, but we weren't calling Caleb a threat episode 1. You know?
We were episode 2.
We were episode 2, so let's see what happens to Charlie. Charlie needs a strong episode 2 for me to move him up high. There's still room. I feel like Charlie's kind of at the cutoff point for me. But we'll see next episode and like how Charlie functions.
We shall. Move to Gem. Good vibes only. Part of the Vibe tribe. Oh my, you have her at 3?
There's one reason.
Why?
She has a winter confessional right after the reward challenge. Don't discount.
Please, no. What's the transcript? What's the transcript?
She said she's like she'll do whatever it takes to win Survivor. I don't have the exact words down, Jack Powell. I did not think that you would.
Everybody says that.
But the fact that they showed it episode 1, not everyone says that, Jack. Go rewatch episode
that at some point in their Survivor career. Just because it's episode 1
at some point, but at episode 1, it matters. Fabio said that episode 1. And I feel like Gem we saw a bit of strategy, we saw a bit of socialness from Gem.
We're comparing her to Fabio.
No, I'm saying like narratively, right? When Fabio has a I will win Survivor confessional, when Richard Hatch has an I will win Survivor confessional, it is a real thing that people look at. All right.
Okay.
All right.
This is probably one of the most disputed rankings we've ever had.
Yes, like, this is the biggest gap.
This is the biggest gap we probably ever had on the show. It's an 11-point gap. So
I feel like the Sega tribe is also a tribe that's going to be ran by the women. Honestly, I feel like I look at Gem, Maria, and Mariah. I think of strong players, and I don't know, man. I'm reading back my script now, and or my notes. I don't know.
I don't disagree with you, and I think it's going to be an episode 2 kind of thing if we see more of them, especially in a 2-hour episode where likely it's going to be focused on Nami or Yanu going to Tribal Council, probably not Sega, or it could be, we never know. Seeing what kind of content Gem has could really change the ranking for me because, you know, I'm still lenient. I'm not putting anybody, I don't put anybody in a real box yet. So, you know, I understand what you mean.
It's a crackpot, but I feel
it's not that bad.
I've had worse takes. Remember the Sean Edwards opinion?
Oh my god! You want to remind the class?
I said that Sean Edwards would have a very similar edit to Boston Rob from Redemption Island of a quiet episode 1 from being on the Disaster Tribe to then running the game. But I feel like
what happened to Sean?
He quit. I feel like Gem has a very quiet episode 1, but that's not necessarily a bad thing when 1, she's not on the Disaster Tribe. 2, there wasn't a whole lot going on Sega outside of the women's alliance and like Tim. Yeah. And I feel like a strong episode 2 would change your mind, or a weak episode 2 will change my mind.
D had a quiet episode 1 last season. You know, It really, anything can happen. Anything can happen. We are going to play an ad.
Yeah, for the first
Our
time.
first ad in Survivor Stockwatch, getting even more vicious. So please be back with us after this nice ad from Bracketology.
My name is Jonah Fielko, and I'm the CEO of Bracketology.tv, fantasy sports for reality television. We offer fantasy games for shows like The Bachelor, Survivor, Big Brother, RuPaul's Drag Race, and counting. You start by creating a community. Within your community, you can create a fantasy league for each show that you want to play fantasy games for. Within the league, you can choose up to 3 of our 4 game types, and our most popular is the Advanced League. Choose a team of contestants, and depending on what they do and say during the episode, that's how your team will gain or lose points each week. We also have elimination-style games like our Confidence Pool. This is where you choose how confident you are that each contestant will survive elimination that week. And we've also got March Madness-style brackets. Come back a couple hours after the episode to check your scores and watch you climb the leaderboard. Bracketology is free to play, so grab your friends, your family, your coworkers, and head to bracketology.tv for more info.
Bracketology, everyone. We have our fantasy lineup again. I'm not sure of the exact rewards for this one. I'm not really in on this one this season, but it's a good time. We'll definitely be doing one for season 47 of Survivor, so get hooked up on that. Is it an ad for one of Liz's businesses?
I would not be surprised if Liz owned Bracketology.
I would not be surprised as well. You know, Liz could truly own every business and also no business in the world. So we really don't know. Now, we move on to Maria. When you'll notice, I also had a good vibes only, good vibes only thing. Because, you know, the name of the game is the Vibe Tribe with the ladies because they don't need to worry about anything else. They're in charge. And they're running the tribe. So we both have Maria very high. I think there are some great moments from her confessionals, but I really think it's important to note her emotional intelligence. I think she's a very, very smart woman, and I think she's really, really going to have some great insight into what's going on. She already has this episode. And so we both think Maria's going to do well. We think longevity. Could be wrong, but we got her. We're high on Maria right now.
Oh yeah, I feel very confident. I want to point out too that she is the mom, but she doesn't want to be the tribe's mom, which is a dynamic I don't really see a whole lot. I feel like whenever there's the older mom on the island, she kind of enjoys that because it's easier to make bonds.
Yeah.
But Maria is going to play into the more cutthroat style of gameplay.
Vicious.
Do I think she's a winner? Vicious. Do I think she's a winner? Maybe not. But do I think there's a lot of longevity, especially in the Sega tribe? Absolutely. But I also am worried that next episode she'll be seen as the mom of the tribe and, have to play into that archetype because then that's the edit, going against what Maria wants, and then that will lose a lot of stock. But
potentially. But yeah, we're high on Maria, but I am higher on Mariah. Mariah.
Yeah.
It's not that I was so completely locked into this number one. I was really iffy with this number one between honestly, like the top 5 contenders for me. I really didn't know.
Yeah.
But I think Mariah pushed it over the edge. She's introverted, she's shy, but instead of being that as the trope, she wanted to explain her goals. Now, could it be a growth edit? Sure. Happens all the time with a player like this.
Yep.
Could not be, though. Could not be.
Yeah, no, I was very surprised because I think a lot of people going into the season, they thought Mariah would just be the Aubrey of the season of very anxious and freaking out all the time. But she had a very surprising level head. and she explained her faults, she explained her downfalls, and how she wanted to move past it. And she did it in a way that I really liked. I'm having her at number 4 because I don't want to jinx her at number 1. But Mariah's another player that I've drafted. And of all my drafts, of all my picks, of all my players, I feel the most confident with Mariah right now. Because I feel like there is legitimate winner potential more than Tevin. Even though I have Tevin higher, I was just more confident that Tevin would make it further and be a main character. Because my fear with someone like Mariah or someone like Jem is they get the Kendra edit, where it's like it's a strong episode 1, and then over time they get on the back burner, and we watch the rise of an ally. But that's for episode 2 to worry about. Episode 1, it was a very strong. It wasn't too much. It wasn't too little. It was that perfect balance. And I'm excited to see where Mariah goes, if Sigur goes to tribal, or if she just wins out.
Right. And I think one more interesting thing to point out for Chris, you're absolutely right. I think if we were to get that edit where it would be kind of the rise from the ashes type, like David and Aubrey and Gabby, we would have seen that, and it would have been a lot more prominent this episode. But it was very subdued, and I'm interested to see how that continues to play out. And maybe it's the signal of a potential winning game.
Who knows? Hi, Tim. Speaking of winner.
No girls allowed. No girls allowed. Stop it, stop it, stop it. Tim is the next messiah, or should I say man-siah, saying no women's alliances. Honestly, quite reasonable. The women seem to be very tight, so, fair to assume. Fair to
they
put
are
it that
working
way.
together.
Does it work? That's where it gets a little tricky. And I think Tim, unfortunately, is likely the first boot from this tribe. Sorry. Just luck of the draw. Nothing really else you can do with that.
Yeah, I feel like Tim started out, and I think he's too defensive of a player, where he waited to see the women's lines form and then go to Charlie. And instead of saying hey, Charlie, I want to work with you, it's more of a, hey, we got to do something about the women's alliance. But Charlie is already a part of that alliance, And so I feel like while it puts Charlie in the middle, I feel like Charlie, the boys alliance isn't really a thing. We didn't see Tim and Ben link up. We just saw the women link up and then Charlie joining them.
Right.
I feel like there could have been longevity with Tim if he was on a better tribe. But I feel like this is not his group. This is not his team. Honestly, kind of reminds me of Roxroy from 42. I think that's a
reasonable
point. And I'm not confident with Tim going forward.
I'm not as well, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's out relatively quickly.
Yeah.
We move to Yanu with Banu, who cried a decent amount this episode, but
yeah,
you aren't being paid to cry on TV. He is getting a little stipend, as everyone does. So
true.
Good for him. But very visible. Had the most confessionals, actually, with 9. We'll get to notes about the Edgic later, but had the most confessionals with 9. So it's clear Banu is an important figure on the season. The question is he too emotional? Because we saw him being very positively emotional this episode, but in the next time on Survivor, screaming at Jess at the challenge. So
I am not high on Banu at all because I feel like he was very visible, but we didn't really get a lot of strategy from Banu. I feel like a lot of his confessionals were, I love Survivor. I am a Survivor. I grew up wanting to play Survivor. And I just don't see the longevity. I don't see the game. I feel like Yanu is a disaster tribe, but not in the Lulu sense, but more of they're just going to lose the challenges and it's not that they're dysfunctional. It's just they need to win. And I feel like Banu freaking out at Jess, I feel like when Yanu gets down in numbers, if they lose, the next challenge and the challenge after that, I feel like we could see Banu go.
That surely could happen.
And especially with someone like Q, like I don't know. I feel like someone who's maybe a little more emotional on a tribe with Q kind of being a leader role isn't going to work out. So I have Banu pretty low. To me, that's the cutoff point. I feel like he's kind of in the third tier, with Charlie at 11 being in the second tier.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm not high on him at all. Sorry, Banu.
I'm really interested to see next episode. I think next episode, that challenge and maybe the reactions to that is going to be the tell. And it's going to be the tell of how Banu will play out this season. We move to Jess, software engineer. Very, very, very chaotic episode for Jess. Very self-criticizing, very very demoralizing against herself, a lot of self-deprecation, but I don't see a lot of that. I definitely see the nervousness, like the paranoia, but she did decent work on the puzzle for what it's worth. You had a quitter next to you, so the great David Zielinski, the legendary David Zielinski. Jess is a great character. I absolutely agree, Chris. I think Jess is going to be important in the season. In what capacity, we don't really know. But I do think she's important, and she plays a role certainly on Yanu with more than that we've been given.
I'm just afraid that she's going to be a big personality that goes like pre-merge, that everyone's going to talk about later in the line, where they're like, bring back Jess. And Survivor doesn't, because why would they bring back a pre-merge? I feel like this is not the tribe for Jess, but she got very lucky with Jelinski and Q being on the same tribe. And I'm hoping, here's what I hope happens. I hope Yanu loses again. I hope Banu freaks out at Jess. Jess opens up to her tribe, is a little emotional, plays on those heartstrings. But I don't see it, but I want to see it because I like Jess a lot. The whole scene of her losing her future kids and like needing a leash for herself was really funny. I like the self-deprecation in the confessionals, and there's no doubt that she's a good character. I can see her being the next boot, especially on Yanu.
We'll see, but I do think she made a great impact this episode, and it's going to be interesting to see how that kind of quantifies in the next couple episodes.
Hi, Kenzie.
And then we move to Kenzie. This is my favorite meme that I found. It's just psychotic. The people who like to stick to their alliance 3 before last season. You have made me part of your alliance. What will we name our firstborn child? Just fantastic. But Kenzie had a great episode in the sense that that's the thing, Chris. Here comes the analysis, and I think Will and I are right on the same page with this one. She had a great episode on paper, and I think she's going to be important in the season. The problem is, it just felt a little disconnected to me. You know what I mean? Like, it felt like a little disconnected from the winning goal.
Yeah, I feel like it's too visible. I think it was too much for an episode 1 winner contender. That's my thing. When you're calling yourself the queen of the tribe, when you're running things and you're shown to be running things episode 1, I feel like it's too visible, because my logic is, Survivor is still a whodunit for the viewers, right? When you watch it live, there is mystery and suspense of who's the winner. And when I think of the new era winners, no one had a episode 1 where they're like, I'm leading this tribe. I am the boss. Do I think Kenzie is the leader of the tribe? Absolutely. But I also feel like she could get sniped early on. She could get usurped, or she makes it further and is more like, again, like Kelly from 45, where it's like, yes, she's kind of the leader. She's kind of the big name of her tribe, of her alliance, but too big for her to overcome. And that's my fear.
Absolutely. Jay, welcome back. We were wondering where you were.
I'm naming my firstborn Jay.
Maybe my firstborn Jay.
Yeah.
She didn't lose the first episode, but Sarah Lizzie a winner gives her first confessional was something like, I have a great social game. It was, but it was
True.
more kind of something I've noticed this season, especially along with Titans versus Rebels, which I am doing an Edgic for.
Yeah.
With Titans versus Rebels, I think a key thing that can really denote a winner and a strong winner is ideas. Not necessarily gameplay, but ideas of gameplay. I'm going to play like this. I have a great this. I'm going to use this from my life as an advantage.
Yep.
Kenzie didn't really have much of that. And so I'm hesitant to put her higher because I didn't see a lot of true ideas presented to us.
Yeah. There's one thing. She is a salon owner. Last time we had one, it was Jam Jam. So that's the only reason why she's not lower.
Purple Tribe, salon owner.
I'm just saying, it could definitely happen. I don't know. I'm not confident with Kenzie right now. I do think she's going to be a big name, a big player, but she doesn't have quite the longevity I'm looking for episode 1. I think it was a little too much. I think it was a little too fluffy, kind of like Banu. I feel like Banu had a lot of fluff in his edit, and I feel like Kenzie's going to have the same thing, or a very deceptive edit. But that's where I'm at with Kenzie.
Fair enough. We move to Q, the only one that has a letter as a name. This meme is more attributed towards David Jelinski, the legendary David Jelinski. But I don't think Q's going to win. I just think Q is decently well respected, and I think he could do well and could go far in the game. And, him with the whole sweat versus savvy task and him instantly going against Jelinski. I knew the second that David Jelinski, the legend David Jelinski, quit that sweat task, that Q was going to go after him. And I wasn't surprised when that ended up happening. All respect to, Q for that, but we knew exactly what was going to happen with that. And, it's going to be interesting to see because I think we always say that. Our Stockwatch quote, it's going to be interesting to see.
Yep.
That's our quote. Put that, merchandise that.
Put it on a cup.
Yeah, but it really is going to be interesting to see what Q has up his sleeve, what kind of gameplay he pulls out, and hopefully we see some good stuff. But right now he's a very trying to be a positive, working man type of character around camp.
Yeah. I feel like Q is stuck in an archetype that never wins. But that doesn't mean they don't find success. I feel like when you're the hero, just well-rounded player, I think of Jonathan from 42, right? Where Jonathan was never really in a position to win the game, but he could make it far because he had that alliance and good work ethic. And I think that alone will get Q to the merge. Do I think he's making it far in the merge? I'm not sure. Q is my last pick. He was my first draft pick overall. I'm a little worried because he's already getting called Superman. Don't make that face with me, Jack. All right. I had like 12.
All I'm saying, your picks last season were horrendous.
I know. My
really
picks
bad.
My picks this season was fire.
And you're in the lead. You're in the lead. But I am letting the public know. Will picked Hannah Rose and Sean Edwards. And what happened?
And hey, look, I'm just saying Hannah Rose is coming back. She just needed her vape, bro. Hi, Tiffany.
I'm done talking about Q. I don't want to stay on that topic. Tiffany, my winner pick. Hello. I think she's going to be a big player. Do I think she wins? I don't know. It's a little too early to tell. I do think she's going to be a very important player in the season, but it's very hard for somebody to find the beware advantage, lose the challenge, find the key, and find the idol in the same episode. So, good deal.
Oh yeah. And honestly, this is a little controversial to say because I feel like whenever someone finds an idol or anything in this game, everyone's like, "Don't tell anyone, keep it a secret." But I like that she shared the beware advantage with Kenzie, but not with Q and Banu. Because I feel like it strengthens that bond with her and Kenzie to where they are a duo now and they are working together even closer than the outside of the four. And the fact that Kenzie didn't tell, or no, it was not Bonnie, it was Jelinski and Q. The fact that Kenzie didn't tell Q or Jelinski, it spells good things for Tiffany. I'm not a fan of people sharing everything about advantages and idols, but I do think sometimes people overreact and think, oh, it's always pointless because we saw it work out, especially when it's a beware advantage. And
I want to point this out because she did tell them she lost her vote. And so if Q and Banu are really thinking about it, when she got, to be fair, only 3 votes were read at that tribal council. So they could very well not know that Tiffany voted or not. So I do agree, though. I think it's a good strategy. It's setting up tiers of alliances, right? It's setting up Tiffany and Kenzie as the first tier, and then Q and Banu as the second, and Jess as the third, which is a very, very smart strategy. And incorporating layers into that is very, very intuitive. So that's good for me.
Yeah. I have her at 6, but I feel like, honestly, I could have moved her higher. It was less about her, more I just felt more confident with everyone else in the top 5. Outside of maybe Gem, but Gem was kind of my crackpot, my gamble, my risk, my vicious pick.
To the Edgic. The last thing with some notes this time. The notes will diminish as the chart gets bigger. First of all, credit to Banu. Absolutely. I think a little bit of that can be attributed to David Jelinski, the legend David Jelinski's just horrific gameplay. But Banu did a good job. Highest visibility, Jelinski with a 5. The worst rating, Jelinski with over the top negative. The lowest visibility, Liz, Randon, and Jem. Your favorite, Will.
Not my favorite, bro. Not even
your
close.
Favorite. It's your favorite.
Jem is like my 12th favorite player this episode.
Your favorite. Best rating, Hunter, Tevin, and Kenzie with the CP. There was no complex personality positive this episode, but the CP is pretty good. And introduction confessionals. This is key. Tevin, Banu, Jess, Charlie, Hunter, Tiffany, Venus, Kenzie, Soda, Q, and Jem. If you were to put money on it, one of them probably does win.
Yep.
So
probably Tevin.
Probably Tevin. Probably Q.
Probably Q. I feel like Q. There's a path where Q wins. It's too early to say.
Weird path.
It's a weird path, but I could see the story. I could see it pan out. It's just, is it likely? Not really, but I could see Q as a winner.
Definitely. How long did it take you guys? How long did it take you to get the hang of Edgic, Will?
So like in terms of making my own contenders and like reading the edit, or just like understanding Edgics in general?
We'll say both.
So Edgics in general and just like knowing what it means and what everything means. I just picked up from playing orgs because a lot of the online games, they would have their own Edgics. It's harder to do because the season's playing out live, like it's Big Brother. And this is all like you can tell by the editing. But I started paying more attention to the edit and like writing notes for season 45. That was my first time really like doing contenders and whatnot. And so I just think about like what makes sense in terms of storylines, stuff that's hidden, and like what makes sense for them to like what makes sense for them to edit for both casuals and super fans, right? like super fans picked up on the Carson Fire thing, but fans appreciate more general storylines. And it's like that's why I'm not calling like Gem the winner of season 46, because it doesn't really work for the casual fans.
Right.
I don't know. What about you, Jack?
I started back in, I want to say 2017, 18, when I first started playing orgs as well. I was known as Edgic Man on Instagram. That was my fandom moniker. And I really fell in love with it. I've done Edgic for this. I've done Edgic for tons of other things. I've done fan Edgics for seasons that don't even exist. I just make charts for the sake of making charts, because I like picking apart storylines. I like analyzing storylines, and I like making storylines. And so Edgic is a great way to do that for me. And people like pretty colors on chart. So
I love using Excel. I love Excel so much. It's my favorite thing to use.
Such a banger. We did, Jay. We did rate Venus. Yes. All right. That's going to do it. That covers everybody. Will, any thoughts?
I feel like we're in for a season that fans at first will dislike, but as time goes on, people will appreciate 46 more and more. That's my crackpot.
And that's not an unreasonable assumption. I think that's quite reasonable.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Jack.
Will.
Jack.
This has been the Stocks.
Yes, it has. Actually,
Do you have any final thoughts?
Yes. I want to give a shout out to this host at Outback Steakhouse who worked for 2 weeks and decided to quit this morning, causing me to have to get called into work. And I told my managers, I'm like, I have something to do at 2 p.m. They're like, what is it? And I'm like, it's a thing. And they're like, okay, you can leave at 2. And I'm like, can I leave before 2? And they were like, maybe. So that's why I was late, because someone quit this morning.
Well, this has been the most vicious episode of Survivor Stockwatch to date, and it will only get more vicious.
And there's something we should announce. Next episode of Survivor Stockwatch, we will be having our very, 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 very first guest. We will have at Survivor Super Fun Time. He covers a lot of Survivor stuff. He has very luscious hair. And so yeah, I'm very, very, very excited to
find new people in the podcasting scene. Well, thank you all for coming to our handy dandy little show. We're so thankful for you that you could be here. And we will see you in episode 2 next week.